If you look back in history, that happens on a, not a frequent basis, but it happens regularly. Money is a type of technology, essentially. And I think we're, 13 years into this, we're still premature in terms of imagining the world 50, 100 years from now, right? Like, we can have these visions of what things happen, but I do think that cryptography has changed and a global network. The combination of a global network with cryptography, with proof of work, with difficulty adjustments has changed the game here in terms of what is possible with money. And Bitcoin is obviously the best version we know of on how to do that. So you can never really fast forward 20, 30 years and say this is what the world looks like. But I think that we've opened this Pandora's box of kind of recreating the possibility of hard money, commodity money, but one that, unlike gold, moves at the speed of light.
In a recent interview, microeconomist and investment strategist Lyn Alden discusses the ongoing evolution of the global monetary standard championed by the world's largest cryptocurrency. Alden states that Bitcoin has opened Pandora's box and changed our perception of what money should look like and how it should behave. Bitcoin was created ago, not just because the technology was accessible and available, but also because there was a need for a better monetary standard. Over the past decades, the world has witnessed the gradual decline of fiat currencies and traditional financial institutions. It is evident from the many sectors that Bitcoin has touched and improved in only 13 years. The blockchain network and the overall cryptocurrency ecosystem are here to effect some much-needed changes in global economics. Though Alden does not know precisely when it will occur, she is certain that Bitcoin is going to replace the present monetary era, and the world will be left with better, faster, and more secure money. Please watch, like, and share this video. We appreciate all our viewers and subscribers for their continued support. Let's dive right in. In her interview, Lyn Alden talks about the multiple layers that would be involved in Bitcoin becoming a global currency that can support the needs of 8 billion people.
I think, yes. I think the only way it works realistically is in layers.
Okay.
Which is how any financial system, any complex financial system is developed, right? So you have basically Bitcoin as the base layer, you have Lightning, and then you have different levels of custody on top of that. You could have things like Cash App, right? So Cash App can scale to tons of people, but of course you're trusting Cash App. You're giving up some degree of the permissionless. Then you have those things like federated Chalming mints that can be a on the spectrum between self-custody and third-party custody. You can have these kind of distributed custodies. So I think when you combine multiple layers and technologies together, people can kind of choose their own adventure on how far down the Bitcoin stack they want to go, or what their economic reality allows them to go, right? So someone with a lot of Bitcoin might want to go deeper on the Bitcoin stack, whereas a lot of other people might want to rely on those federated custody services or fully custody services, or just have their own kind of Lightning setup. So in the free banking era, there was a discount based on one is how much you trusted the originator of that issuance, and then two, how far you were from it, how liquid it was. So for example, the Bank of Arkansas, let's call it, if you lived right near the Bank of Arkansas, it'd probably trade 1-to-1 because it's super liquid. Whereas if you're in New York, you're like, I don't want the Bank of Arkansas note. I'll buy that for 80 cents.
Yeah, fuck Arkansas.
Because I got to do all this friction to get it ever redeemed. Yeah. I have to get it to Arkansas. And I don't really trust it, right? Yeah. So you'd have these different levels of pegs. We actually kind of see that today with USDC and Tether, right? So during the whole Luna fiasco, USDC, their attestation shows 100% T-bills and cash, whereas Tether has a portfolio model where they hold some of those, but they also hold some assets that do have risk. And they also have this longer track record of people questioning their asset quality. And so you had more people want to redeem Tether. Tether is trading at a discount, whereas USDC was trading at either full or sometimes a premium. And so you have different levels of how the market assesses their risk and arbitrages that. So some people say, okay, you want to sell me Tethers for 95 cents, I'll go ahead and redeem them for dollars. And so you have someone willing to step in and arbitrage that. So yeah, basically in an era that is like that, including the one right now, if there are questions about liquidity or solvency, you get a discount compared to the underlying Bitcoin that it represents.
It's fascinating. We're living in an era where we could genuinely see a transition to a completely new monetary system.
Potentially. I mean, but if you look back in history, that happens on a not a frequent basis, but it happens regularly. Money is a type of technology, essentially. Yeah. It comes down to technology, right? So right now, we're in the process of testing this 13-year-old technology, right? So in the beginning, the funny thing is when you look at the forums, when WikiLeaks turned to using Bitcoin, Satoshi got nervous.
Yeah, of course.
He wasn't sure it was ready for that.
Yeah.
And of course, we've come a long way since then. But it always requires a degree of humility to see, is this network ready for this? Can it withstand a certain state attack? Can it withstand, this happening, right? So everything that Bitcoin goes through, we're testing to see how hard and how durable the network is. So the Mt. Gox attack, certain countries banning it, unbanning it, China banning Bitcoin miners. What happens in this environment? What happens in this environment? What happens if a million altcoins try to scam people into going into other systems and then they blow up and they have to sell their Bitcoin into the weak market? So we're testing every step along the way. Is this the right system? What are the attack vectors? Is there some sort of way to exploit it? Can we hack it? Things like that, right? We're kind of testing all this through. And so looking super far ahead can be premature because we're still testing the system, but we have a clear direction here. The Pandora's box has been opened in terms of cryptographic money, peer-to-peer money, self-custodial, using encryption, and we see a clear direction. And then the question just becomes, does any risk that we haven't accounted for throw us off of that? And if no, then we, basically it becomes continually a stronger form of money than anything we've had before. And then it becomes a question of, what does that mean? What does that mean for central banking? Does it arbitrage between the economy moving faster than the money go away? And does it mean that, we have, say, created some sort of asymmetrical technology that empowers people over larger entities? Because, again, in the prior conversation, we talked about the Oslo Freedom Forum and Human Rights Foundation. This is a strong environment for authoritarian regimes, because if you control the banking system and if you have advanced surveillance technology and, big data, you have a lot of top-down power. And whereas cryptographic money is kind of bottom-up power. And the question becomes, which one of those two forces is stronger?
On the one hand, we have a centralized financial system that leaves a lot of room for authoritarian policies and unchallenged control of the masses by the ruling class. On the other hand, we have Bitcoin, the only asset in our history to be completely permissionless and unconfiscatable. There is no doubt that both cannot coexist. The traditional financial system has all but wrecked itself, while Bitcoin and the rest of the cryptocurrency sector grows stronger by the minute. Sooner or later, the weak money is going to give way to stronger, better, and more secure money. Let's get back to Lyn Alden's interview as she describes how she first got into Bitcoin and why she got interested in the crypto asset.
I first heard about it in 2010 and I thought it was neat, but
you bought a shitload.
Nope. Nope. And I kept hearing about it. My biggest question was, because there's a lot of people that hear it and dismiss it.
Yeah.
For me, I never dismissed it, but I was like, why can't you just copy it? Or maybe they'll make a better one. Or I kind of got the basics of it. I was like, seems neat. In 2017, I took it seriously.
Okay.
But it was very euphoric at the time. And again, I was like, I'm not sure which one of these is going to win. It was really when I saw the resolution of the block size war, and I kind of saw the immutability of Bitcoin tested.
Okay.
And I saw the differentiating network effect of Bitcoin versus the others. And then I delved deeper into technology of, why doesn't Bitcoin have smart contracts? Why do they keep the block size small? Why didn't Bcash win over Bitcoin? Basically going into the rabbit hole of why these variables are the way they are. Why can't you just change it? How immutable actually is it? That's when I got kind of interested in it. So I bought my first Bitcoin in April 2020. So it blends technology with economics, which is profoundly interesting. And it's also a set of building blocks. I made the analogy before that when the iPhone came out, no one thought this is going to disrupt the taxi industry in 10 years. And, then we had Uber and it did.
Yeah.
And so when we have programmable peer-to-peer money, what does that mean? It's like a building block that it's hard to envision 10 years from now what that means. And so I'm just kind of super excited about what that means for a lot of things. And then two, a lot of my macro work is around studying money, currency, and energy, which just naturally,
there you go.
You can't not have a view on Bitcoin. You can't not study Bitcoin and figure out to what extent do I want to hold Bitcoin, but also to what extent does Bitcoin change my other things? To what extent does it change energy companies? To what extent does it affect reserve practices? To what extent does it affect periphery markets that are already struggling under the current system and they may want to go to another system? And so because a large part of my focus is on studying the failures of the current monetary system, I can't help be interested in the future possibilities of what can happen if these other technologies continue to be adopted. There's a couple of things. One is I think it's a very large time commitment to understand.
Yeah.
So my multiple first interactions with it, I was open-minded, but it was hard to jump in and just put the time in and see why does this work the way it does? What makes it unstoppable or hard to stop, you should say. And then two, I think a lot of people are either turned off. They either are mad they didn't buy it earlier, or they're turned off by some segment of the community, and they don't realize that the actual ecosystem's got far more layers and depth than they realize. They think there's like just only the have fun staying poor crowd.
Yeah.
They think that's Bitcoin. Whereas there's so many different segments. There's VCs, there's cypherpunks, there's investors,
There's our environmentalists now.
there's environmentalists. There's so many different communities within. There's no Bitcoin community. There's some shared values in some places, and there's kind of OGs, but it's gotten big enough that there's no one thing anymore.
Lyn Alden has given us some great insights into how Bitcoin will lead us to a whole new revolution that will finally give money the meaning it should have. Money shouldn't be a tool that a few can easily manipulate for personal gains while the rest of us are left with crumbles. It should have rare qualities that make it permissionless, uncensorable, and so convenient it can be moved thousands of miles within seconds. These are the core qualities of Bitcoin and the blockchain. This is why anyone who has taken the time to properly study the crypto asset believes it is going to touch every aspect of our lives. There is no doubt that within the next decade, we are just going to wake someday and realize Bitcoin is everywhere, completely interwoven with everything we do. What do you think about Lyn Alden's interview? Please ensure you drop your comments below, and don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. We still need your help to reach 150,000 subscribers. Thanks for watching.